Hey y'all, my name is Antoinette and I am the Human Developer. And I develop youth, parents, and professionals and I support them in creating goals and working towards those goals. So I hope you had the opportunity to visit my website, AntoinetteDevelops.com. There is a message waiting for you, especially if you're a youth, a parent, or a professional who works in the human service field. Now, when I say youth, I'm talking to anyone under the age of 19. If you're under the age of 19, there is a message there waiting for you. If you're a parent of any age, there is a message there waiting for you. And if you're a professional who works in the human service field or you work with humans at all, there is a message on AntoinetteDevelops.com waiting for you, and I would appreciate it if you go there and you check it out. Um, while you're there, do not leave the website without going to Ask Antoinette. Ask Antoinette is a way for you to communicate with me. You can get feedback, advice, some sort of counsel for free, and I actually respond to you on my live. So please, y'all, please do that for me. And if you don't catch me live, it's okay because all my lives are posted to AntoinetteDevelops.com. All you got to do is click on Antoinette Goes Live and you will see all my lives or my videos that I've posted. So while you're there, check that out as well. Today, I'm going to talk about one of the youth messages that I actually wrote maybe a couple weeks ago, depending on when you're watching this video. And it's about you have to define you. And the post really is just encouraging youth to define them. Because, I'm surrounded by youth all day. I go to schools. I have brothers and sisters who are in their teens. I have children of my own. I have godchildren. And I'm just really involved in the lives of youth. And one of the messages that I tell them and I encourage them to do is to define who they are. Because if they don't define who they are, then the world is going to define who they are for them. And if they are being influenced by positive influences, then that's okay. But if they are sitting around on social media all day or watching television or listening to the radio or even surrounded by their friends, they might not be getting fed the proper information that they need 99% of the time. And since that's the case, we have to make sure that we instill in our children that they have to define who they are. Okay? Because once they define who they are, the outside influences won't get on the inside of who they are. Because they already built their armor and their shield up of who they are. Okay? And I know this message is so important to me because I really didn't get a clear definition of who I was and who I was going to be until I was about 24. I was about 24 when I really made that decision, like, this is who I am, this is what I want to work towards, this is who I'm going to be. And once I started getting the information on, when I started doing the research on how can I obtain that life that I want, I started reading information. And when I started reading this information, I started trying to have conversations. And I realized the people that I was hanging around couldn't have these same conversations with me. And I wanted to grow. And I wanted to grow into the definition that I had for myself. And I don't want the youth to have that same problem when they are growing into self. I want them to, first of all, define who they are early, not at 24 like me. It's people who are older than me that still don't even know who they are. So I don't want our youth in the next generation to go through that. I want them to know who they are early based off of their own definition. And then I want to support them in working towards their goals, right? But at first they have to define who they are. Because one of the main important reasons why our youth need to define who they are is because our decisions come from who we are, right? Because, for instance, when I was younger, I was involved in abusive relationships. I'll just keep it there. I was involved in abusive relationships, right? And because I was involved in it, I allowed myself to go through that abuse because of the definition that I had for myself at a young age. But if I would have created a definition of myself that had that included a definition of high self-esteem and self-love and self-respect and self-worth, I wouldn't have ever allowed myself to go through that. Or if I would have went through it, I wouldn't have stayed for as long as I did, right? So it's important for our youth to define who they are early so they can begin to make the proper decisions early. So if you went on my website, I have some questions, some statements that require responses that will support youth in getting a clearer picture of who they are, who they want to be, who and what they value, and things of that sort. So I encourage, whenever I do my posts, I always try to have included in my post some type of activity. So I encourage you, if you are answering these questions or responding to these statements, write it down. Because writing it down solidifies it. So yeah, just write it down. I'm going to share with you a few of the questions. It was 7. I'm going to share with you a few of them. But if you want to read this message in its entirety and also go over these questions, I encourage you to go to the website, AnswerNetDevelops.com, click on youth, and you will see not only this message, but all of the messages that I have written to the youth so far. So please go check it out. But like I said, I'm going to share some of the questions that will support youth in getting a clear picture of who they are and who they are becoming. So one of the questions is, who and what do you value? I love this question because it helps me to understand who and what these kids are valuing at this age, because they have so many negative influences in front of them. So when I ask this question and get to hear their response, I really am surprised by their responses, because I must say the youth that I work with in the inner city, they are some smart behind children, and they are wise. They are wise. So I don't even listen to what the media be saying half the time about the youth, because the youth that I work with, they are wise and they go in places. So who and what do they value? This is a good question to ask, because one of my girls that I work with, I asked this question to her, and she told me one of these entertainers that are out here. She said she values this entertainer. And at first I was really apprehensive about this entertainer because, she's really like for adults to me. She's really for adults. Her music is provocative. She's cussing. She's degrading herself and other women. And it's just a lot. But I didn't show my student that I was apprehensive, I wanted her to be willing to share any and everything with me. So I asked her why, and she said, well, she makes money, she's very pretty, and I really like that about her. So I said, okay, so you like the fact that you value this entertainer because she likes money. Because she makes money, and because you feel as though she's pretty. So does that mean to you that you value being pretty and you value someone with money? You think that money is valuable? And she said yes. So then I began to ask her about this entertainer's lyrics and her music, and she responded to me like, I don't even listen to her music. I don't even listen to her music. I just like, her style and who she is as a person. So that helped me to realize that she's not really looking up to this person's music, but more to how this person shows herself and presents herself. So that made me feel good, and that also helped me to get a clearer picture about what my student values, and that's looking good and making money. Ain't nothing wrong with that, right? Also, I ask my students to describe their attitude, and not only do I ask them to describe their attitude, I ask them to have to describe how the people closest to them will describe their attitude, and see if they align, see if they match. I also sometimes take it a step further and have them go home, ask their peers and their parents and their siblings to fill out this worksheet where they have to say how describe my students' attitude. And sometimes they're surprised by the responses that they receive. So I like asking this question and getting their responses because I've found that students don't really pay close attention to their attitude, and they don't realize that their attitude can, how much their attitude can block a blessing or intercept a blessing. You know, they don't realize it. They just feel like they're teens and they can just say whatever they want and do whatever they want. But when we actually sit down and we talk about their attitude and talk about how if they would have responded a different way or showed a different attitude and how and discuss the different outcomes of what having certain attitudes can bring, they're really amazed. And you realize that they don't even really put that much thought into it. And that's okay. That's why it's important for us to have these conversations with our youth and the kids in our lives. Because I think sometimes us as adults, we think that these kids are supposed to know, and they don't. They don't know, and they need us to teach them. And a lot of times, their parents don't even know. Their parents don't even know to teach them because their parents are young themselves. So, that's something to think about. And another question and this is going to be the last question that I will discuss. If you want to know all the questions, please go to AntoinetteDevelops.com. But I asked this to my students. What kind of student are you? How would you describe yourself as a student? And I like to ask this question because I always say, being a student doesn't, and if you are, say you're a student, being a student doesn't determine how smart you are. Okay? Being a student period does not determine your smarts, but it determines your discipline. And I say that all the time. Anybody can be a student if they put in the discipline, the time, and the work, right? But I just want you to, so I ask my students that because a lot of times, if you are doing your best and you get a C, then that's good. You're doing your best. But if you're not doing your best as a student and you get a C, then that means your student ethic will your student work ethic will kind of go into your work ethic. And it just shows a lot about who you are and how you do your work and how diligent you do your work. I know one of the things I tell with my son, even though he's only in the second grade, but at his school they have penmanship class. And one of the things, he just writes real quick and fast and he just wants to get it through. And I tell him all the time, Zaire, it's not about how fast you get done the work. It's about the quality of your work. It's about the quality of your work. And when you produce quality work as a student, it is my opinion that you will produce quality work in life. You will take pride in the work that you produce. So if we as students, and if our students aren't producing quality work that they're proud of now, please, as us parents, we have to begin to make that a priority. Our students have to produce quality work because they got to do their best and they got to be quality work. Okay? So, I'm done. It was good talking to y'all. If y'all have any questions about this topic, any comments about what I said, please make a comment. Yeah, just make a comment. Whatever you want to do. So, I appreciate y'all for watching. And it's been real. Talk to you later.